So again, welcome everybody here. I hope that now you can hear me out from this mic that I have here. Now I learned that only the first channel number 1 is the one that Facebook will take. So for those of you wanting to do this, channel 1. So Rasikananda, which is a good friend of mine and also my first guru of tabla, he asked me if I could talk about the structure of a Korvai, parts, logics and all that. And Korvais are fascinating topics because they are effectively endless. There are a few rules that you must stick to, but they are very tenuous rules. It's not like rules that there's a ton of them and you can easily bend them, and great masters have bent the structures of Korvais in wonderful ways. Korvais have two main parts, at least two main parts. The first one is called Purvangam, and the second is called an Uttarangam. And decime que se ve, amor.
Sí, así.
Okay. Purvangam and Uttarangam. As I said, counterintuitively, Purvangam, the first part, is normally translated as the lower one, and Uttarangam is the upper one. And I mean counterintuitively because you start with the lower one. Okay, that's a bit counterintuitive to me. These two parts are always present in all Korvais. However, some Korvais more involved have more than just Purvangam and Uttarangam, and those Korvais are of a different level. As I explained also in, I think it's episode 302 or something like that, in the early 300s, there's also a very interesting concept that are the seamless Korvais, which are Korvais following this structure of Purvangam and Uttarangam, but they have additional rules that make them really hard to perform and create unless you know a couple of tricks. And those tricks were revealed to me by Ravi Kiran sir, the wonderful maestro of the Chitravina and singer as well. And he has many lectures about that. And the problem, if you want to call it like that, of seamless Korvais is that the Uttarangam part needs to follow a very strict rule, which is it needs to be a theermanam, that is a phrase of a given number of beats 3 times without gaps in between. And that's where the trouble starts. However, the trouble doesn't end there, because also the structure together, Purvangam and Uttarangam, must not be divisible by 3. And you might tell me, okay, what's a big deal about them? Well, it doesn't sound like a big deal until you start to create a Korvai with those constraints, and then you realize, oh my God, this is much harder than I think. Seamless Korvais, there are 2 45-minute lectures on YouTube by Chitravina Ravi Kiran sir that he explains a lot more, but sometimes I find them a bit too advanced, even for a person that has been studying Carnatic drumming like myself for a couple of years. So, but the content is out there. And another thing that Rasikananda mentioned is about the logics behind Purvangam, behind Korvais. And one thing that is almost always the case, I haven't encountered a Korvai that does not follow this rule, but still I am early on my path of Konnakol and Carnatic music, is that something I have always encountered is that the Uttarangam is always a theermanam. Theermanam, sometimes you find this expression called mohara instead of theermanam. Mind you, it's not mohara, that is a different concept. So mohara, you will sometimes found it as mohara, theermanam, and many others, to be perfectly honest with you. But I come from a school that calls this theermanam. So a theermanam, for those of you that might not remember, is a very conclusive phrase that follows a very particular format or pattern that has a shape of 5 components, and 3 of those components are statements, and 2 of the other 2 components are gaps. So we have statement, gap, statement, gap, statement. All theermanams then, they follow this statement, gap, statement, gap, statement, gap, SG, SG, SG. Sorry about my handwriting. Right? And normally, most of the time, the statement parts are phrases of equal length. So, for example, a phrase for 10, a phrase for 10 beats, a phrase for 10 beats. And the gap can be from 0, that's the characteristic of it, or more beats, whereas the statements are always at least 1. So a very common theermanam would be this: 10, 2, 10, 2, 10. This is a shape that also in Hindustani music we find a lot, which is, forget me, I'm forgetting my Hindustani padhant, but this is a phrase of 32 beats. You see, 10, 10, 10 is 30, and I miswrote this. This is 1, it's not 2. I was thinking of another one, sorry. So 10, 10, 10, and then 30, 31, 32, and this is takita tom tadikinatom, takita tom tadikinatom, takita tom tadikinatom Dhi-im. It is a full cycle of aditalam. Again, we're talking about Korvais. So the uttarangam is always a theermanam. So what happens with the purvangam? And the purvangam is where the magic happens, because there are very many ways of creating a purvangam, and they all have to do with both mathematics and aesthetics. So you cannot just simply come up with a number, right, that you need in order to complement the purvangam, and then you have a beautiful korvai. It doesn't work like that. And especially the most celebrated korvais are those that are both mathematically and aesthetically beautiful. And I'll give you just one example. Normally when we create korvais, we start from the second part here. So we fix the theermanam of that's going to be, let's say, we want it to be, I don't know, 7, 7, 7. The gaps are 0. And this is 21 beats in total. So if you want the composition to last 2 cycles of aditalam in chaturashanada madhyamakalam, that is a total of 64 units. So 64, what you need to do is, okay, 64 minus 21. Okay, that means that we need to create a purvangam of 43 beats, and then when you play this, and after this you play the uttarangam, then you have a korvai. And how do you go about creating that phrase for 43? That is the subject of books and books. And in particular, this would be a seamless theermanam, a seamless korvai, so it would be extra difficult to do this. So that's very, very quickly some rules about korvais. I hope I answered your question and questions. Rasi, if you have more, please type them. I'm gonna look at Igor's question. I have 2 questions, says Igor. What is the idea behind composition type mohara? Okay. What kind of rhythmical compositions are there in Carnatic music besides kovar, mohara, and abhiprayam? Thank you, Igor, for those questions. I will understand your question in the following way. What is the idea behind, if you mean usage, how would you use a mohara? Mohara is a very set type of composition. It follows even stricter rules than a korvai, and it's always used within the context of a Tanya Vartanam, which is the drum solo in Carnatic music concert. The mohara is used as the as an introduction to the last korvai, to the last composition. So you have a lot of previous compositions before. You can have a korapu, for example, which is a dialogue between two performers. You have sarvalagu, which is just playing around with the groove, with the beats that create that particular nadai. And then when you reach the mohara is a set composition that is very likely that all the percussionists will perform at the same time, and then they go into the korvai. and the beats, the phrases that you use in the mohara and in the korvai are interrelated. You know what I'm going to do? Once this video is on YouTube, I will link to the moharas and mohara korvai that I already put out in my videos, because I have done at least 2, and I remember doing like 5 or 6 moharas one after the other. One feature that you can tell immediately that is a mohara is if you hear a phrase that is talangudim or talangudim ta talangudim, which in mrdangam will sound something like this. Talangudim, talangudim, or talangudim ta talangudim. If you hear something like that, 99% of chance is that that is a mohara. So to then finish your question, Igor, I think that the mohara is used in a way to tell everybody, to tell the musicians, the other musician that is waiting, the main musician, you know, the singer or the chitravina player, that okay, we are reaching the end, because the mohara is very easy to tell. So you hear a mohara, you know that after that is a korvai that's going to be repeated 3 times and it's over. So that's a very clear way of identifying where you are, because you know Tanya Vartanams, these solos can go for 20 minutes, and you know, and usually performing very complex things that the melodic instrument players might not necessarily understand everything that's going on. And the other question was, what kind of rhythm compositions there is Carnatic music besides korvai, mohara, and abhiprayam? Thank you for the question. One very common composition is the korapu. The korapu is literally means reduction in Tamil, and what it means is that this is a concept that we also see in Hindustani music as question and answer, but in Carnatic music is more standardized as far as I understand, because as the name implies, reduction, it means that you will start a phrase composed with a particular set of rules that, let's say, it's 2 avartanam songs, 2 cycles, right? 64 aksharas if we are in the standard subdivision of Aditalam. And then what is happening is that there is a question and answer. The main percussion player will perform it, of course, never telling the other percussion players. And the other one, normally, let's say if you have 3, like mridangam, ghatam, and tabla, right? The mridangam performer starts with the korapu, and it's up to the ghatam guy to understand what happened and then repeat it, and then on to the tabla. And that will go for a couple of times until the mridangam player chooses to shorten it. So instead of lasting 2 avartanams, it's going to be a version of that same phrase, but lasting only 1. That's the korapu aspect of this reduction. And then that will continue again, this question and answer. And then you know what happens later. The next time when the mridangam player decides, then the phrase is going to last half an avartanam, and then a quarter of an avartanam, and so on until it lasts perhaps 1 matram or even less. That you hear like ta 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 ta, and then korvai, and then we go home. Always a korvai. And so korapu is very, very exciting to do, and there are many different kinds of korapu as well. Not always starting from the downbeat, from the saman. You have things such as mishra korapu that start after 8 beats. They start from here. You have kanda korapu, tishram korapu. There's many variations of them. Another one that I like is erapu, which is very similar sounding. And erapu is, I forget exactly what the Tamil word for is, what it means, but it is a type of composition that is used to shift the nadai, to shift the subdivision. So if you are in Chaturashram, Tha-ka-ju-nu Dhi-im, Tha-ka-ju-nu Dhi-im, and you want to go to Mishram, which is a subdivision of 7, you cannot just go from one to another. It would sound bad. So there are compositions that are very carefully composed, created, so that you can go from, in this particular case, Chaturashram, subdivision of 4, to subdivision of 7, through a very aesthetically pleasing composition. That is Erapu, and I have put at least 2 in my channel. You can search for Erapu, or I will also link to them on the description of this video after this video is on YouTube. Moa Nicolas, a ver, about theermanams, or tihais as I know them better. Absolutely, theermanams, tihai, the same thing. There's some in which the last event here or whatever, or the actual phrase that you are repeating on the psalm of the next cycle, but usually in your videos, I see that the psalm is a new hit. Yeah, it's the difference between Carnatic and Hindustani. This is absolutely the most, the biggest difference I have found in both. Thank you for this question. I think I have addressed it in some video or other, but yes, absolutely that is the case. And I don't want to take sides here because I studied Hindustani music 20 years, right? And I'm still a newcomer to Carnatic music. But that is true. When we describe a theermanam through notation, we never include the following beat. It's just not part of it. While when we do describe with notation tihais, we always include that. I remember that very well, and Rasikananda is here in the comments. He can tell you how many days, weeks, months, perhaps years I spent trying to figure out formulas for creating tihais back in the day. I actually wrote computer programs to write tihais for me. I was very much into that back in the day. And the Carnatic approach to this, it really, you don't, when you take out that last dha of the following cycle away from the equation, it becomes super simple. And then you can create theermanams or tihais or mohras for any length or size. It doesn't need to be, necessarily in tintal or in japtal or in chaturashanada, in madhyamakalam, aditalam, or whatever it is. So is that the main difference between Carnatic drumming and Hindustani drumming? I know too little to say that there is the main difference, but it certainly is a big difference. And you're absolutely right. We do not count it, but it is impossible not to play it, right? So if you are playing, let's say, a theermanam that it ends with 555 777 111, 555 777 999, right? That is 63, so we start right after 1. If you're doing Tha-ka-di-mi, Tha-ka-ju-nu, Tha-ka-di-mi, Tha-ka-ju-nu, Ta-di-ki-na-tum, 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 Ta-tom, Ta-di-ki-na-tum, Ta-tom, Ta-di-ki-na-tum, Ta-tom, Ta-di-ki-na-tum, Dhi-im. You need to play that Dhi-im. You cannot not play it, right? It feels wrong, but it's not part of the structure that we describe with numbers in Carnatic music, while in Hindustani music, I think we would write it down. I hope that answers your question. Okay, let's see if you have any more questions while I pour myself some mate. ¿Cómo estamos de tiempo? Okay, medio día, sí. Empezamos tarde, además. If anyone has some mate, you're very welcome to have some mate. For those of you not knowing this is not a drug, my friend. This is a traditional drink like tea, but from South America. ¿Quieres un mate vos? Sorry, I need to give some mate to my assistant. Thank you, assistant. Considering there's a delay, I'm going to wait a bit to see if there are any other questions. And if not, then I would like to discuss one very interesting Korvai that I woke up to this morning. And I thought, oh, that would be a good Korvai to show to the people that will show up. This is our kitty, Meaty. She's here. She just needs to be with us. And she's so black that you probably don't see her against the black background. Ok, Michi, tenés que irte, ¿ok? Listo. Estoy en vivo. Hay gente mirando. So, since I don't see any more questions, the only thing I see is this cat playing with one of the cables that we have around. I think I'm going to go to the next part of this talk. Thanks a lot for the questions. So let me show you here what I got. I will, of course, be walking us through this. So this is the Korvai that I want to show you today. That, of course, I will transcribe on YouTube once the video is up later today. And I chose it because it's, well, I like it a lot. And it can be played in 2 different nadi as well. So as you can see at the top, we start, this is not 345, this is 3, 4, 5. And considering that the image is not that good, as I have been told, perhaps it's better that you write it. So the first line is 3, 4, 5, then Thakajunu Dhi-im. This is a Dhi-im of 4 aksharas. And 3, 4, 5, we can play in different ways. As always, I always like to stress that one of the interesting characteristics of writing down these compositions is that sometimes the actual solo that you perform, the actual syllables, the actual bols in Hindustani terms that you perform, are not that relevant, because you can choose, depending on the speed of that you are playing, you can choose, you know what, this is, if I perform this in a simply takita, takadina, tadikinatom, that's a bit boring, so I'm going to do takridom, takridom, or even more than that. For 3 on 4 on 5. So the important bit here is that 3, 4, 5 is the beginning. We're going to use takita, takadimi, and tadikinaton. The cat did one thing. Close the door. Parece. Sorry about the cat. So 3, 4, 5 again. So it's going to be, you know what? I'm going to tell you about the numbers later on. So 3, 4, 5, Thakajunu Dhi-im. Important thing here. This Tha-ka-ju-nu, each of them lasts 1 akshara. Right? So this has a value of 4. Thakajunu, and Dhi-im, again, a value of 4. Dhi-im. The second line, look at this beauty. Instead of having 3, 4, 5, we have 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. Okay? Second line, twice as much. And then we have Thakajunu again, but lasting twice as much, because this is ta dash ka dash ju dash nu dash. So in total, this Thakajunu will take 8 aksharas, not 4. And then Dhi-im, a standard Dhi-im of 4 beats at the end here. The third line here, you guessed it, is 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5. So we are repeating all this 3 times. And then Tha-ka-ju-nu Dhi-im. So we went from a Thakajunu that lasts 4 in total to a Thakajunu that lasts 8 here, and to a Thakajunu that lasts 12. So we are, on the first part of this line, we are repeating 1 phrase, actually 3 phrases, the 3s, the 4s, and the 5s. And in the second half of it, we are expanding the Thakajunu. It's really, really beautiful and clever as well mathematically, while the Dhi-im stays unchanged. This first part. This is the Purvangam. That's the part that I told you that this is when you do your magic. And here we have the Uttarangam, that is always a theermanam, right? Well, this is a beautiful theermanam that is also quite special. What happens here? We have Kirataka Tat. This Kirataka is underlined, which means that it's at twice the speed of everything else. So it's going to be Kitatakata, 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 twice the speed of let's say the original Thakajunu or the Takita, Takadina, Tadikinatum, Kitatakata. So the Kitataka, twice the speed. Kitatakata, and then 1 dash, and 1 phrase for 10. Takitatom, Tadikinatum. Then again, Kitatakata, twice. So it's Kitatakata, Kitatakata. And then 2 10s. Takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom. And finally, the last line is kiridagada, kiridagada, kiridagada. 3 times the original phrase, and then we have 3 10s. So you can see that both in the Purvangam and the Uttarangam, we have this repetition, this increasing of the excess, in a way, that the times we repeat the same phrase. I really love this Korvai. It's not the easiest, right? But, well, nothing worth in life is easy. I think what I'm going to do, since I'm not sure about the quality that you are seeing this, I'm just going to perform it. So the 3, 4, and 5 at the beginning, I hope you took notes. The 3, 4, and 5 at the top of every line is going to be ta kitatom, that's the 3. The 4 is ta ta kitatom, and the 5 is ta di ta kitatom. So it's a variation of this phrase kitatom, right? Ta kitatom, ta ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom. Then Thakajunu, and then Dhi-im. So the first line will sound like this. Ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, Thakajunu Dhi-im. Okay? Again. Ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, Thakajunu Dhi-im. Then we have the second line, which I'll remind you is 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, Thakajunu extended, and then a D. And we're not going to do it with the talam yet, because I'm just showing you how it sounds. So it is ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, Thakajunu Dhi-im. So you see the difference, right? The first Thakajunu was Thakajunu, and this one is Thakajunu, twice as long. That's the second line. The third line is 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, and then Thakajunu, and then Dhi-im at the end. And it sounds like this. Ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, Thakajunu Dhi-im. I'm going to perform the 3 together now. Ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, Thakajunu Dhi-im. Ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, Thakajunu Dhi-im. Ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, ta di ta kitatom, Thakajunu Dhi-im. So that was the 3 phrases of the Purvangam. We ended here. The Uttarangam. We said that it is kitatagata and a phrase for 10. So it's kitatagata, takitatom, tadikinatom. First line. Second line is kitatagata, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom. 2 phrases for 10. And finally, kitatagata, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom. One thing that you might remember, the very last 10, 10, 10, the very last 10, 10, 10, is one exercise that I remember posting many moons ago, and the friends of the Zero Duo are been doing as part of their Carlitos Konnakol challenge. This is the 10, 10, 10, a phrase, the theermanam for 3 10s that starts after 2 aksharas, because 10, 10, 10 plus 2 is 32. So, and 32 is 1 cycle. So it's 1, 2, takitatom, tadikinatom, etc. So when you are learning this, if you land in a way that you start the last 10, 10, 10 after 2, you are golden. That is what is supposed to happen. So now, I don't know how much you are following. I don't see many comments, so I trust that you like it. Well, there's 5 people, so 5 people is better than 2. So I'm going to perform this again from top to bottom. First, I'm going to count off half a cycle of Adi Talam, as I always do, so you get an idea of the tempo. Tha-ka-di-mi, Tha-ka-ju-nu, Tha-ka-di-mi, Tha-ka-ju-nu, Tha-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-di-ta-ki-ra-dum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, Tha-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-di-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-di-ta-ki-ra-dum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, Tha-ki-ra-dum, 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 Tha-ta-ki-ra-dum, 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 Tha-di-ta-ki-ra-dum, 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 Thakajunu Dhi-im, Kira-da-ka-ta, Takita-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Kira-da-ka-ta, Kira-da-ka-ta, Takita-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Takita-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Kira-da-ka-ta, 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 Takita-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Takita-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Takita-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, de. So that's it. Yes. We have a few comments. Thank you, my wonderful assistant. Many people are watching. Hello. Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you. I followed it in the Kanjira. Great. People like it. They're telling me that there's 2 people in this computer, so there's actually more. Okay, good. That's what matters. Well, if I see that people are following this on the Kanjira, I'm not going to torture you with the Kanjira, but I thought of playing this in the mrdangam as well. It's not something I do a lot, and I hope it will sound okay. I honestly don't know. We are in the lap of the gods, as some people used to say. I'm not going to change the camera, I'm afraid, but okay, this is the mrdangam. Hey, mrdangam. So I'm going to perform this. I am also going to recite it as I go, and then if you have any questions about what I'm doing, I'd like to hear them or read them. First, yeah, half a cycle of Italian. Tha-ka-di-mi, Thakajunu, Tha-ka-di-mi, Thakajunu, Tha-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-di-ta-ki-ra-dum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, Tha-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-di-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-di-ta-ki-ra-dum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, Tha-ki-ra-dum, 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 Tha-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ki-ra-dum, Tha-di-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-di-ta-ki-ra-dum, Tha-ki-ra-dum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, Kira-da-da, Taki-ta-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Kira-da-da, Kira-da-da, Taki-ta-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Taki-ta-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Kira-da-da, 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 Taki-ta-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Taki-ta-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Taki-ta-tom, Tadiki-na-tom, Taki-ta-tom, Taki-ta-tom, Tadi-ta-ki-ra-dum, Taki-ju-nu Dhi-im, Taki-ta-tom, Taki-ta-tom, Tadi-ta-ki-ra-dum, 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 Tha-ka-ju-nu Dhi-im, Taki-ta-tom, Taki-ta-tom, yeah, I think that probably I might have made a mistake on the previous one. I'm not sure, but this one was okay. Any comments there?
Mortal.
Ah, mortal. Ah, gracias. Mortal. No es mortal como Mortal Kombat, amore. Yeah, and actually, there's a little more fun to be had with this Korvai, because, as I said, you can do it in. What are we with time? Okay, I didn't want this to run too much over 1 hour, and we started a bit late. But I wanted to say this, which is I wanted to show you that you can also perform this in Tishram, right? So, which, as you know, the beats don't change, but the underlying feel changes completely, because the beats no longer fall in the same place. So it kind of feels like the composition is going against the beat. It's very, very interesting, and this is one of the things that I love most about Carnatic drumming, that this is so prevalent. There's so much of this shifting of nadai from one to another. So instead of playing under a bass of Tha-ka-di-mi, Tha-ka-ju-nu, Tha-ka-di-mi, Tha-ka-ju-nu, we're going to perform as under a bass of Takita, 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 right? And that means that the first line is going to be Takridum, Tatakridum, Tadi-takridum, Thakajunu Dhi-im. You see, completely different than the previous one, which was Takridum, Tatakridum, Tadi-takridum, Thakajunu Dhi-im. So I'm going to perform this first with Konnakol. That's not too fast, so you can follow along if you haven't written down. So takita, first half a second validala. Takita, 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 takirdom, takirdom, tadi, takirdom, Thakajunu Dhi-im, takirdom, 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 tadi, takirdom, tadi, takirdom, Tha-ka-ju-nu Dhi-im, takirdom, 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 tadi, takirdom, tadi, takirdom, tadi, takirdom, Tha-ka-ju-nu Dhi-im, kirdurda, takitatom, tadikinatom, kirdurda, kirdurda, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, kirdurda, 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 takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, de. So it has a quite difficult part, which is on the third line of the Purvangam, when you have the Tha-ka-ju-nu Dhi-im, because that is a phrase of 16 beats in total. So it's Tha-ka-ju-nu, that's 12, plus the Dhi-im, 16. And 16 is not a phrase that it would groove well in Tishram when you're subdividing by 6, right? And the thing is, that is when you need to take extra care when you are performing this, because that is going to be a difficult one. So let's go there and see where it starts. Takridum, 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 Thakajunu Dhi-im, Takridum, 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 Thakajunu Dhi-im, Takridum, 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 Thakajunu Dhi-im. So it starts after 1. Ta, Takida, Takida, Ta, Di, Thakajunu Dhi-im. Yeah, that's correct. So it's Ta, Thakajunu Dhi-im. After 2 it starts. So it's Thakajunu Dhi-im. Tagitatom. It's kind of tricky. Tagita, 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 Thakajunu Dhi-im. That's how it needs to sound, because then the kiratakatak is downbeat. And let's play this with the mrdangam as well. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, takita, 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 takidum, takidum, tadi, takidum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, takidum, 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 tadi, takidum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, takidum, 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 tadi, takidum, tadi, takidum, tadi, takidum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, kirura, takitatom, tadikinatom, kirura, kirura, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, kirura, 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 takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, ding. And the way of linking the two in performance would be to do the Tishram trick, which I created a video about that, which is anytime that you have a theermanam or any group of 3 phrases of equal length, you can take the last 2 and turn them into 3 by going to Tishram. And that is very common. So in this particular context would be takitatom tadikinatom, takitatom tadikinatom, takitatom tadikinatom, takitatom tadikinatom tim, and you are already in the next avartanam in Tishram. So I'm going to try to perform that now. So takita, 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 takadim. So takadimi, takajunu, takadimi, takajunu, takadimi, takajunu, takadum, takajunu Dhi-im, takadum, 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 tadi, takadum, tadi, takadum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, takadum, 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 tadi, takadum, tadi, takadum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, kirura, takitatom, tadikinatom, kirura, kirura, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, kirura, 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 takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, takidum, takidum, taditakidum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, takidum, 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 taditakidum, taditakidum, Thakajunu Dhi-im, takidum, 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 taditakidum, 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 Thakajunu Dhi-im, kirura, takitatom, tadikinatom, kirura, kirura, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, kirura, 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 takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, takitatom, tadikinatom, boom. I think I need one mate after that. Very funny, both of us playing simultaneously. Okay, that's some interesting development.
Thank God for modern technology.
Thank God for modern technology, says my wonderful assistant, and I agree with her. Question, we have a question. A philosophical question. In what sense are gaps gaps? Well, this pullover I'm wearing is from the Gap. So I guess that if you buy your clothes in the Gap, then that's a gap, I guess? No? Okay, never mind. Hola, Pablo. Thanks for that question. Gaps, they're not simply a hole in a composition, right? Let's get that out of the way. But what they are is a handy way of looking at two different languages. So when we have in a theermanam, right, we have, as I said, let's say very simple one, 555-1, 555-1, 555. That's a theermanam that has gaps of one akshara. That is the ultimate gap, because you're not going to play anything there. You're just going to play tadikinatum, 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 tadikinatum. So that gap, it really is a gap. You don't play anything there. However, the gaps are more than just silence or a rest. Gaps are functional units within a composition. So that's why when you have gaps for, I don't know, 4 beats, you have gaps for 10 beats. And they are still considered to be gaps. And one way is, well, if you are, one way to tell them apart is that if you are in the context of a theermanam, right, of a composition that follows the theermanam laws, then you know that you're going to have 2 gaps. That's it. So you are going to perform them in a particular way. So if you have a composition that is 5 gap, 5 gap, 5, and you're not going to play all those 5 in the same way, because otherwise it will all be the same. If you play the phrases 5s as tadikinatum and the gaps as well as tadikinatum, it's just going to be 5 5s. It's not what the gap is asking you to do. So that's why when we perform a gap for 5, we're going to use a different language and a different performance. So in mrdangam context, let's say this, tadikinatum tam tang, it will be. So it's tadikinatum tam tang, tadikinatum tam tang, tadikinatum dim. So tadikinatum tam tang, tadikinatum tam tang, tadikinatum dim. And also very often, especially when you are in faster speeds, the gap, even though it is a 5 gap, you will play it as a real gap. That means like one hymn that lasts 5. So if you are in Kandanare, for instance, there is a subdivision of 5. If you have a phrase that it is tadikinatum tang, tadikinatum tang, tadikinatum, you're not going to play tadikinatum tang tang, tadikinatum tang tang, tadikinatum. You're simply going to play tadikinatum tang, tadikinatum tang, tadikinatum tang. So in that sense, the gap is still written as a 5 gap, but depending on the context, you will play it in different ways. And that is, I believe, one of the wonderful things about the flexibility of writing these compositions with numbers only, because it leaves the decisions to the performer, to how we're going to perform this, which is affected by context, whether you are accompanying a soloist or if you are in a solo. Depending on the nada, depending on the speed, depending on how well your instrument is responding. You see, all of that are variables that are left to the performer, and that is wonderful, because you can effectively, if you know the structure real well, the numbers real well, you can be playing always the same korvai, but with different solo, with different implementation of it, and it will sound fresh every time. My Western mind thought of as rest or silent, but is obviously so not. No, you need to check your Western mind at the door. As you know, Pablo, I also studied Western music for many years, and it really doesn't help applying your Western mind. That's why I developed my transcription system as well, because trying to write this down with Western European notation, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. And there are great efforts, especially the things that are done by the guys over at percussion.io, that they meticulously transcribe compositions of Konnakol and mrdangam, and all those wonderful people that they do drum covers of B.C. Manjunath, for instance. And they're wonderful efforts, but honestly, the majority of those cases, they really don't know what they're doing. And I'm saying this as charitably as possible, because you can see that they have a Western mind and they have learned this by heart. And the actual structure, the underlying structure of these compositions is not there. It's not there. And so that's why we really need to approach this with an open mind. And as I always like to say, and perhaps it would be a fitting end, is that to understand Carnatic music, you only need Carnatic music. We need to leave our Western European, slightly colonialistic mind checked at the door, and try to understand this with, as I said, with an open mind. And it's not that difficult at all. It really is not. The arithmetic that we handle here is first grade arithmetic. This is not, I don't know, integrals or advanced calculus. We're talking about really basic math here. We don't go over the number 10 most of the time. But what's wonderful about this is that you can really get deep into this knowledge. And I have seen people, great masters, construct amazing solos in subdivisions, rhythm cycles that are taken out of a bowl, right? So, such as Patrisar, his very famous younger generation mrdangam artist, that he would, in a solo, what he would do is he would have ask people to write in papers, in small papers, the three main aspects of the talam, right? Okay, how much do you want the lago to last, and what is the subdivision, and what the family of talam, and with all those three, he puts them in front of himself and said, okay, this is going to be, I don't know, Sankirna Jati Triputa Talam in Kandagati. That means a cycle of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 beats, divided each of them into 5, right? And in his head, he creates on the spot a solo for that, a 20-minute solo, right? By doing all this basic arithmetic. I'm not talking about a beautiful solo, right? And sure, it's a bit of showing off. There's a lot of that as well. But that tells you the level of understanding, the level of how profoundly they understand this music on the other hand, at the same time, in very basic arithmetic levels, right? This is not complex concepts that you need to grasp, but you need to really be super sharp about it. Also, as a Westerner, says Pablo, the clash between the 4/4 beat, or whatever the nada is, and the structure of kira, I don't know what that would mean, sounds at times random. How relevant is the regular beat of the 1, 2, 3, 4 for an Indian ear? I'm not sure if I understand the question. The structure of kira. Who is kira? Who is kira? Anyone I should know? Kira is Korvai for colonialist apple. Yeah, right. You need to train the autocorrect. I have done that. Yeah, but that's the thing, Pablo. It's not random. It's just not matching. But it's not random. It has, as I have shown, it has a very deliberate structure, right? But it's not a structure that will map to the underlying nadai in the way that we would perceive as correct or as expected. So I know that, for instance, that you play Irish music, right? And all that music is within a grade of either 4/4 or 6/2. So it's bacon and sausages, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, takita, 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 takita. So all the phrases that you will play would either land on the downbeat or on the upbeat, right? But that is a convention, that is an agreement of that music, which incidentally is dance music, and that's how it works. And if you would play an adaptation of a Korvai with your Irish bouzouki, they would kick you out of the stage, right? They would not like it, unless it would be a solo perhaps. Whereas in this tradition, in the Carnatic tradition, if you play always straight, they will kick you out of the stage. I don't know if you've seen videos of Carnatic music being played, but the talam is always kept. You have musicians, let's say when they are taking turns, you have one musician that is keeping the talam. Sometimes they have students on stage only keeping the talam, and crucially, the audience is keeping talam. Everybody knows where you are, and even during a very inspired session of improvisation, they are keeping the talam, and that is something that's quite unique, and a lot of people misunderstand what that means. They think that, oh, how can you be inspired by the fire of the divine if you keep counting? And that's a different story. You definitely can. So when you have in such an environment that everybody knows at all times where you are in the cycle, and God forbid and God help you if you get out of it, playing downbeat and just playing, just playing Tha-ka-di-mi, Tha-ka-ju-nu, Tha-ka-di-mi, Tha-ka-ju-nu, Tha-ka-di-mi, Tha-ka-ju-nu, playing it all straight as you would perhaps within an Irish music concept, is not gonna cut it. You need to all the time be embellishing this within reason, of course. Some artists do not like that, but you need to be embellishing this, because otherwise it becomes quite boring. And I wouldn't say boring from the Western mind, I'm saying boring from the Carnatic view. And that's another interesting difference between Hindustani and Carnatic, that Hindustani, when you are playing within a concert context, right? You as a tabla player, you're gonna play tin, tal, teka straight until it's your time for the solo, right? You're gonna be da din din da da din din da da din din taka taka din din da. You're gonna play there until you get the authorization to play. Whereas in Carnatic music, that's not what's going on. You as a drummer are expected to interact with the singer or the instrumentalist, and ideally you should know the song that is being played, and also the parts of it, and the refrain, they're not called refrain, but you know what I'm trying to say, that the pallavi, anupallavi, charanam, all of those you're supposed to know. And that's why you see so much of unison playing in Carnatic music, that very often you ask yourself, okay, where are they, right? Where's the beat? I don't know what's going on. It's like, this is so disjointed. Why is that? It's so takam, takadom, takidadom, takidadom, takati, and don't know what's going on. And the answer is that everybody else is keeping talam. So if you would see what's going on in that recording studio, you will understand at all times where you are. And that's why I wanted to give you this context, like why it might seem random to us, but it's certainly not, quite the opposite. I need one mate. Let's see if we have some other question, and if not, I think we'll wrap up. Pablo just wrote, the pulse is implicit yet all important. Big difference. I couldn't say it better. The pulse, of course, is there, and well, we could define pulse perhaps in not exactly the same way, but the pulse is always there. Actually, it has a higher implication as well that I will not go into. So yeah, that's it. That's it. That explains a lot. Okay. Well, I'm very thankful that made sense. And if you don't mind, I think this is 1 hour 20. We're going to wrap up. And what else do I have to say? But thanks a million for Cameron. My assistant is doing hand gestures and I don't quite understand, and she's blowing kisses to somebody. So maybe she say,
goodbye.
Yeah, I am saying goodbye.
So
this is the long way of saying goodbye.
Argentinian way of saying goodbye.
Yeah. So thanks a million. Thanks a lot, really, for joining me. I didn't know what to expect. I'm sorry for the technical issues at the beginning. And that's it, really. As I always like to say, let me know what you think by leaving me a message using the Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube comment boxes, or by, I guess they will be here displayed. I guess they will be here displayed. My socials, here you can send me a message. And tomorrow we will continue with the regular programming of Konnakol 2020. We're gonna finish that series of Korvais. We're gonna perform them all together. And that's it, really. Thanks a million for being here. I have been Carlitos from Slovenia, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye. Can you click end live video, please?